is a building that I have put my blood, sweat, and tears into. I have spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars volunteering in this building. Darlene. You have no right to keep me out of here. You have no right to stop.
That's the voice of Darlene Zaifman-Guslits on July 25th in the lobby of the Jewish Community Centre in her hometown of London, Ontario, as security officials barred her from entering a speech by Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. He was supposed to talk about antisemitism. Zaifman-Guslits wanted to talk to him about LGBTQ rights and about his party's policies on transgender kids. Poilievre supports banning puberty-blocking drugs for young people. She came to the event wearing a black T-shirt that read, "Protect Trans Kids," and she wore a rainbow kippah and a rainbow scrunchie in her hair, the symbols of the Pride movement. She says it was to support her own daughter and their family. The situation became tense. Zaifman-Guslits refused to leave. She was informed she was trespassing, and then a half-dozen uniformed London police officers picked her up by the arms and legs and carried her out to the parking lot. They didn't arrest her. But Zaifman-Guslits feels devastated. She's thinking of legal action. The JCC, she says, is like a second home for her. For years, she's run a free hot meal program for the needy that feeds hundreds of people at Purim time. Her Holocaust survivor parents helped found London's Jewish day school in this very building. Zaifman-Guslits admits she lost her cool, but she feels what happened to her is another example of how the mainstream Jewish community in London is not making space anymore for diverse viewpoints like hers.
We are so committed to trying to get the Jewish community to recognize that there are voices that are different than what they are stating. And they are so afraid of that, they just will not allow it.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Friday, August the 9th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News. The protesters who gathered across the street from the JCC that night to bang a drum and wave Palestinian and other flags against Pierre Poilievre were a mix of independent Jewish voices, labor groups, University of Western Ontario faculty, and supporters of abortion rights and trans youth. Darlene Zaifman-Guslits says she wasn't part of that protest, only her daughter was. So when it came time to go inside the JCC for the Poilevre event, and despite all the protesters pre-registering, the JCC didn't let them in. So they left, except for her. London's JCC says it was decided beforehand no protesters could come. But they made an exception for Zaifman-Guslits after she said she wasn't at the protest, so she could stay. And the JCC insists Pierre Poilievre's security team overruled them when the situation deteriorated. London police also blame Poilievre's private security detail. Pierre Poilievre's office insists it wasn't them. They said local organizers didn't want to let her in to disrupt things. London police said the JCC issued the 24-hour trespass notice, and I've seen a photo of that notice, and here's what it says. Quote, the JCC's CEO, Rob Negus, authorizes the Conservative Party to act as his agent to serve trespass notices, and any designate of the Conservative Party may issue and enforce bans to anyone who, in their sole discretion, is determined to be a trespasser and affect the Conservative Party of Canada's purpose. Unquote. For her take, Darlene Zaifman-Guslits joins me now.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ellen.
Our listeners may or may not have seen the video, but it's certainly compelling. Can you take us back to how you decided you were going to go and see Pierre Poilievre at this rally or a speech?
I do not share very much in common with his values, but I thought I would go and listen to what he had to say because his focus was supposed to be on antisemitism. So I registered. My daughter registered for herself, her partner Catherine, and her daughter Rachel, and we met there at the JCC. We were standing outside. I was standing with family and friends, and we were all chatting. And then when we got in, we had to separate into alphabetical order. So my daughter and her party went to the G's and I went to the Z's. When we got up to the front of the line, the executive director of the JCC, Rob Negus, came up to my daughter and said, "You may not enter." And she asked why, and he said, "You were at the protest across the street, so you may not enter." So I left my line to go and ask Rob, where is it written that somebody who has attended a protest is not allowed in? And he stated that the JCC had signed an agreement with the Poilevre people that anybody who had attended a protest was not allowed in, and therefore she wasn't allowed in. So my daughter, who is a lawyer, disagreed with it, but agreed to leave. But she and my granddaughter Rachel made it clear to Rob that I had not attended the protest, and he said directly to me, okay, Darlene, you can go in. So I went back to my line, waiting to be admitted. And my daughter came up to me and said something to effect of, make sure if they do question and answer, you ask about his affiliation to neo-Nazis. And I said, I'm not going to remember that. Please text it to me. And at that point, as she was leaving, one of Poilievre's, I'm assuming one of his security people or one of his handlers, stood right, like he walked right up to me, got right in my space and said, you're not coming in. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, no, you're not. And then he looked at my pride kippah and at my pride scrunchie and at my t-shirt, which said, protect trans kids, and said, because of what you are wearing, you are not coming in. An RCMP police, I believe it's RCMP police officer, came forward and said to me, it is the decision of the Jewish Community Center that you are not coming in. So very loudly I said, Rob Nagus, am I allowed to come in? And he said no. So then I turned to the Federation chair, Brian Ublansky, and I said, don't do this. Brian Ublansky, am I allowed to come in? And he said, not if you're causing trouble like this, you're not coming in. At that point, I fully admit I lost it, and that's when I started to yell. Not one of my community stood up for me or even attempted to tell them, hey, just let her in. Like, nobody did. It was not okay for the Jewish Community Center to have taken sides with Poilievre's people and allowed me to be evicted from this.
You've been in that building. It's your second home. You do the
It is
come in from the cold soup kitchen for Purim. We have 300 people, homeless people. You feed them every year. I imagine. Are you still allowed to do that now?
Well, do I still want to do that? Now, of course, I do want it. And I mean, the sad thing is, I created that program at the JCC to help improve the profile of the Jewish community. Because quite frankly, doing a hospitality meal like that at the JCC is not an efficient use of funds. The money that we raise has to go to kosher food, which is excruciatingly expensive. So, I mean, I do these things deliberately. Same with bringing pride to the Jewish Community Center. I fought for several years before they finally agreed to allow us to have some presence within Pride. So our first year we marched in the Pride Parade. Our first 2 years we just marched in the Pride Parade, and then we introduced the Pride Shabbat dinner. But like, those were all not just because it's the right thing to do. Of course it's the right thing to do, but it also raises the profile of the Jewish community and the broader community, which we need. And what they have done now has just destroyed the credibility of the Jewish Community Center in the broader Jewish community. And it kills me to do this. And I know they're going to blame me for it. They're going to say I'm the reason that they're going to lose donors. They're going to say I'm the reason that CRA might come after them. But honestly, if you don't want to get caught for doing things that are wrong, don't do things that are wrong.
Video shows that, and you even just said that you were wearing your pride kippah and your pride scrunchie colors, and then a t-shirt that said trans rights, protect trans rights.
Protect trans kids, specifically.
Sorry, protect trans kids. Why did you want to wear those to that?
I didn't think it would cause problems. I wanted to make Poilevre uncomfortable. That's what I wanted. I wanted him to see that within the Jewish community, there are people that want to protect trans lives because his policies do not. So was I there to cause trouble? No. Was I there to hope that he would see that there is support within the Jewish community for the Pride community? Yes.
I mean, his own personal story speaks to being raised by eventually two gay men. So
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, his parents split up and his father was with a man and his parents are gay. So I didn't know if you were aware of that.
I know very little about Pierre Poilievre. I really don't have any preconceived notions. I went to listen I work in the homeless sector, and I work with people who are on safer supply, on the safer opiate supply. So I wanted to listen to what he had to say. I didn't have any preconceived notions. I really did not come there to cause trouble. But I wear that Protect Trans Kids t-shirt all the time. I wear my Pride scrunchie all the time. I do not wear a Pride kippah all the time. I wear it when I'm in shul. But I have a daughter who is gay. I have a granddaughter who identifies as part of the LGBTQ community. I'm just a supportive person, just like I am wearing my t-shirt right now for Standing Together. I believe in standing up for issues that I believe in. But that doesn't mean I was there to cause trouble. I have been at speakers at that JCC since October 7th that I am vehemently opposed to their standpoints, and I have never caused trouble. So why would they believe I would on Thursday?
What was the protest they said your daughter went to that you didn't?
They were protesting Poilevre. There were predominantly members of the gay community there, but there were also a lot of pro-Palestinian protesters. It was organized by IJV, Independent Jewish Voices. But there were also people there who are living in poverty, and they oppose his policies on cutting healthcare and dental benefits. I don't know exactly who was there because I didn't go there until after, and the only reason I went is because that's where my children were trying to find me. I wasn't allowed back on property where my car was parked, and they were across the street.
So have you heard at all from Poilievre's people?
No, not from Poilievre's and not from anybody at the JCC, but I got one very short email from Brian Ublansky, from the chair of London Jewish Federation, basically saying, would you like to meet? I'm only available at these times. Regards, Brian Ublansky. That was it.
What do you want to come out of all of this?
I want the JCC to do better. I want them to make space for people who have different views. I want them to never do what they did here again. I am just learning, and I didn't know this before going in and before seeing the backlash. I had no idea that what they did, hosting a single political party leader, is actually not allowed. I had no idea, but I guess it's not. It's against CRA.
What do you mean? Is it a fundraiser for him?
It wasn't a fundraiser. It doesn't have to be a fundraiser. It's just partisanship. And again, I don't know the law. I do not know. But I know people have chimed in on it. I know my daughter brought it up while I was laying on the ground, told police that it was not okay what they were doing. But from what I've seen, the CRA has very specific rules about charitable organizations not being allowed to have a partisan relationship with any political parties. And you're not allowed to have a single politician if you're giving them a platform. It's different if you're inviting them to come to something that you're doing. But if you're giving them a platform, you have to invite all of them. And again, I don't know the law. I have a lawyer. He's dealing with that piece of it. But again, I am not here to make trouble for the London Jewish Community Centre. But I'm also not going to be quiet about this. I'm not just going to go quietly away, because what they did was wrong on so many levels.
It seems like they, maybe panicked, didn't want trouble, or they already had a list from before, that happens. There are lists. I've seen them at various events where they have the pictures of Palestinian protesters in Toronto. I've seen them.
Okay, but I was registered, and so were my daughter, my 14-year-old granddaughter, and my daughter's partner. So they knew we were coming. If they really wanted to be mentions about it and not allow us in so that we didn't cause trouble, they should have contacted us before. Not that I wouldn't have still made trouble, because that wouldn't have been okay either. I never expected the possibility of being able to speak, because the Jewish Community Center has not allowed question and answer since October 7th. Every speaker they have brought in, they have not allowed Q&A, because they do not want anybody making any waves. They don't want anybody asking difficult questions and making people think.
So
And
you're
that-
a member
that's
of
a problem.
Standing Together, which we
Yes, I
talked
am.
about on our show, which is a sort of a new way of Palestinian and Israeli people working together to try to end the violence, end the war, and try a third way to fix generations and centuries of problems in the Middle East. It's an Israeli NGO. Is that why they banned you?
They know that I'm part of Friends of Standing Together because we have tried to get programming at the JCC. We have tried to pay them to do programming at the JCC.
Are you a member of IJV?
No, I am not, and I do not align with IJV. I do have 2 of my children are members of IJV, but I am not. Now, will I go to IJV events? Yes, I will. There are many things that IJV believe in that I do believe in, but I am not an anti-Zionist. Absolutely not. I believe Israel needs to exist, but I do believe that what Israel is doing right now is wrong. I believe in a ceasefire. I believe in a negotiated release of the hostages because the only way we're getting back any of them alive is through some sort of diplomatic negotiation. I do not believe that military action is the way. I do not believe that going back to October 6th is what we want. I believe we need something very, very different. And the only way to do that is for people to actually humanize the other side. The Palestinians need to humanize the Israelis, and the Israelis need to humanize the Palestinians. And we in the diaspora need to lead by example.
So you are suing?
I have consulted a lawyer. I am looking at my options.
Okay. Is there anything you want our listeners to understand about how this sits with you?
This is killing me. I have not slept since Thursday. I'm eating myself into oblivion. I wish I was the type that would stop eating. I am a stress eater. I'm destroyed over this. Everybody's reaching out to me. Are you okay? And it's like, physically, I'm fine, but emotionally, I am destroyed. This is such an integral part of my existence. I have spent so many hours and so much energy on this community. My daughter Bailey convinced me, as I have always told her, that change has to come from within. And I'm also a person that firmly believes that you don't have a right to complain about something if you're not willing to get your hands dirty. And I have always been the one to get my hands dirty. But at some point, I can't be the only one that's standing up. Somebody has to stand up for me. And I have to say, I have had a huge, huge outpouring of love from the community. And some of my staunchest supporters have been people that are so diametrically opposed to me politically, but are horrified with what the JCC did. The JCC sent a message out to the entire community, not accepting any responsibility for it, blaming it all on Poilievre's people, and saying that they had reached out to me. That is not a meaningful reach out to a person that you have wronged. But if they can do this to me, I can't imagine what they're doing to people who don't have that connection. And that's not okay. People over the years have told me that this is not a welcoming community and that they don't feel comfortable. And I have always put the onus back on them, saying, no, you haven't given us a chance. The community is amazing. The community is wonderful. But I can now see they have radicalized me.
Thanks so much for agreeing to sharing it.
Thank you so much. Take care.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. While Zaifman-Guslits consults with her lawyers, the JCC's executive director, Rob Negus, says the community has reached out to her to try to smooth things over. He calls what happened very unfortunate and distressing and denied that her LGBTQ clothing played any role whatsoever in her not being permitted in. The Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman. And our music was composed by Dovbek Levine. We'd love your feedback on this story about who should be allowed into Canadian Jewish community events. I'm at ebessner@thecjn.ca. Thanks for listening.